Here's the question being asked in Ottawa and kind of across the country. Now what? That is the most basic question the public's been left with after NDP leader Jagmeet Singh announced yesterday that his party, the NDP, would no longer prop up Justin Trudeau's minority government with that supply and confidence agreement. So perhaps CTV's chief political correspondent and host of Power Play, Vassy Kapelos, can shed some light on what happens next. Vassy, nice to talk to you this morning. A lot of tough talk from Jagmeet Singh yesterday. Can he back this up with action?
Well, that's the $1 billion, whatever you want to call it, question heading into the next parliamentary sitting, Nick. You really hit the nail on the head. On one hand, in this video, Jagmeet Singh is calling this government weak and selfish. On the other hand, he says he's going to decide on a case-by-case basis whether to support the government on motions of confidence. And just for everyone watching, like, a motion of confidence, basically, if it's voted against the government, topples the government and sends us to an election. So if he keeps voting in favor of the government on those motions of confidence to keep them in power, yes, the formality of the agreement is removed, but at the same time, how does he sort of jive that or reconcile that for Canadians with the way in which he described the government when he made this decision to, as he said, rip apart the deal with the Liberals? It's going to be fascinating to see him take those questions today and fascinating to see him try and navigate that balancing act in the next few months.
Absolutely, Vassy. I know you talk to a lot of, politicians of all parties in Ottawa. Is the suggestion or thinking from the New Democrats that perhaps they can maybe even extract more from the Liberals if sort of the threat of an election is much more imminent without this confidence supply agreement?
It's an interesting question. That's not really my sense. My sense is there was sort of an electoral imperative, if you could call it that, for the NDP to do this. And that's simply because of the Liberals' political fortunes right now. We see the public opinion polling, which they're anywhere between, 15 and 20 points behind the Tories. They've been there for about 8 months. What is interesting is that what's known as an accessible voter pool, so the amount of people who are willing to look at a political party and potentially vote for them, is about the same for the NDP and the Liberals. So I think there is some thinking in the NDP that if they make a move like this and distance themselves from the Liberals, they won't kind of be anchored to or kind of set down with the ship, and they might be able to convince Canadians in the interim before an election that they aren't one and the same and peel off some of those accessible voters and get a better result than they would have if they stayed tied to the Liberals.
And interesting also the timing here, Vassy. We're 11 days out from a couple of by-elections, which could be interesting, particularly for the Liberal fortunes after losing that seat in Toronto a couple of months ago. Is that kind of the thing? Will that be a bit of a test here for the New Democrats' strength, perhaps going into whatever could happen next?
Yeah, it's a huge proof point, Nick, and that's because in Winnipeg, where one of the by-elections is happening, the NDP has been there for a while. It's a well-known MP, Daniel Blakey. He has a long lineage, like his father was an MP as well. So if they were to lose that seat, and in particular the big contender there is the Conservatives, that would be a big blow to them. On the flip side, in Montreal, they're actually a pretty good contender against the Liberals in what is traditionally a Liberal safe seat. So if they were to pull off a very surprising win, it would be really significant there as well. And I am told that in both cities, as politicians and the candidates were knocking at the doors, the one criticism they kept getting from people there was about their alliance with the Liberals. And so I think they were hoping that making the announcement now would give them those 10 days to go to the doors in those by-elections, in those ridings, with a very different message. Yeah,
and one of those ridings, former Prime Minister Paul Martin's riding. Okay, fascinating to watch. Vassy Kapelos, we'll be watching you on Power Play. Appreciate all the insight this morning. Thanks so much.
My pleasure.